Hello, readers. Welcome to Book Launch Tuesday, the best thing to happen to Tuesday since tacos. Tonight, we have a very special release of Murder on the Interstellar Express by Gregory D. Little. A mechanical human hero who speaks in sarcastic innuendo attempts to solve a closed-room murder mystery in space. This is for fans of the Murderbot series by Martha Wells and Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Yay, Greg! I have made you sit on this book, and we have put all of these extras in it, and we've got amazing cover art for it, and now it is finally alive in the world. How does it feel?
It's hard to believe, honestly, but I'm thrilled. This character has been knocking around in my head for a very long time, longer than really any other books I've written. She was waiting for the right story and getting increasingly impatient about it.
What?
Unlike any other character I've written, she is very much feels like a real person who has her own will in my head. So she's been knocking around in there, getting increasingly annoyed that we haven't been writing about her. So she's finally. I was joking before we started that maybe she can leave me alone now.
Nope.
Never.
There's more books to write. And
Yes.
we also have S.G. George with us, and she was the
Hello.
copy editor for this novel. This novel is very unique for anything we have ever published. What did you think, Sarah, when it ended up in your inbox?
I was amused because, it's part of like the D Little cinematic universe, and so like immediately it answered a lot of questions because in one of the books there's a giant spaceship that is like this little set piece, and I'm like, oh, at the end of the book they're gonna go to that giant spaceship, and then it never comes up again, and then I'm like, why the hell did you mention a giant spaceship? And then suddenly here it is. This is where the giant spaceship is.
Yep, it's pretty awesome.
And then as I was working through it, Mr. Little gives me a lot of interesting challenges for copy editing, because his last book I started a new system where I would record a bunch of information about the world and the characters and odd words, and I spent 40 hours on his book writing down way too much information. And so this one I cut it back. I cut it back a lot. I only record like the grammatical things now. And it was the most curse words that I have had to record yet. And I edited an Edward Vale novel.
I remember laughing because in going through Birdie's notes, I came to a note saying that when Belle drops the F-bomb in an extended fashion with a lot of U's, she wanted me to make sure that the number of U's was consistent each time that happens.
Yes.
So it's like a specific number that I did.
There's too many U's here. Please cut them and keep it consistent between books. Thank you.
Yes.
He messaged me when he was writing the new book and was like, "This is how many U's I'm
You're
supposed to use."
Just fix this now.
Yeah. So it's those kind of notes that really point out how surreal your life has become, I guess.
Well, that's a good point, because this one, your other series with us is Mutagen Deception.
Yes.
And so that one, 3 books are out in that series now. Definitely should check that out. You can get the first one at cursedragonship.com/thelast-humans. Highly recommend. So this one, it's the same universe. However, it feels completely different. Like talking about the Greg D. Little universe is not a stretch. So it has a very different tone. So why did you choose to use the same universe, but give it a completely different tonal feel?
We had discussed a bit about this back when I was working on the second book. In fact, if you read the second book, without getting into spoilers, if you read The Dying World, which is the second book of Mutagen Deception, you actually get we'll call it the first canonical appearance of Belle,
At the very end.
She has a brief scene in the epilogue, and I kind of thrown that in with a note to Kelly, basically being like, I want to write this other series, this other character, and I think we could probably dovetail it nicely into Mutagen Deception, given where I'm planning to take that series. But I want to give you kind of a trial of the character in the epilogue, and then send you a draft of the novel and the new series. And if you like it, we can go with that. And if not, I can rewrite the epilogue, and we can just keep the two things separate. So it just happened to work out well. And I worked pretty hard. I think we did it okay about keeping the two definitely exist in the same universe. There are some crossover references between the first book of this one and the second and third books of Mutagen Deception. And if you read both series, you'll get some more cross-referencing that will make you smile and be like, oh, I get what he's referencing here. But you can read them totally separate. You don't have to read either one to get the other. And that's kind of what we've been going for, is that I don't want you to feel like you have to read both series, because that annoys me in other media when you can't just watch the Marvel movies, you have to watch the Marvel TV shows, and
right, you have to connect all the themes.
So you get rewarded if you read both by getting some additional shading and connections made, but you can get the total story experience by just reading one or the other if you're not interested in shifting from a dark, twisty thriller tone to a irreverent, foul-mouthed, humorous murder mystery tone.
I love it. So while we're here and we're talking about this amazing story, why don't we have Sarah read the back cover copy so we can let everyone know a little bit more about what this is about.
Belle's lifelong wish was to leave her colony world. She should have been more specific. In the face of an existential threat, an impending alien invasion, Belle Beauregard does something unprecedented. Her job. She's rewarded by being labeled a traitor, sentenced to indentured servitude, and shipped off-world on a half-built colony ship being used as an escape hatch for the rich and powerful. Belle is awoken from cryosleep as part of an emergency maintenance crew. But before she even has a chance to shirk her duties or flirt with the enticing task, things go full me when a fellow prisoner is brutally murdered, and Belle is the most obvious suspect. To have a chance with Tess and clear her name and stuff, Belle must begrudgingly solve the murder. That's the name of the series. But false accusations, unrequited romance, and having to make an effort are the least of Belle's concerns, because the killer isn't content to stop at one victim, and if Belle can't unravel the mystery, the only way to prove her innocence may be to turn up dead.
I mean, she wouldn't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be times where she's like, maybe.
I think I'm good. I love it. But I love the Belle begrudgingly solves it is the perfect. We did not want to have an adverb in this series title. We went over it. Greg and I, there's an entire thing in Discord where him and I were back and forth. And that was the only one. It just fits. It completely fits because she is not a detective. She is not in any kind of solve mystery kind of job. She's not a writer, as is so common in many of these murder mysteries, right? She's a communication expert who uses her talent to communicate in the most vulgar way she possibly can, because even though she doesn't like it, it's to hide her gooey inside. And so that's why she does it, even though there's nothing gooey about her.
I don't think there's much goo in her inside.
No, not technically, but definitely personality-wise. But this one, I have to say, Greg, because even though this is very tonally different from your other books, it still has certain Greg things this is the Greg D. Little book, and how do I know? First of all, big surprise ending. So that it's big surprise at the end, so we've get that one. You also have a cast of characters that is recognizable and yet completely foreign. And so you had Belle really, really wanted to meet aliens. And so they are and we're not talking like Vulcans. These are completely mad aliens. Can you give us a little bit about them?
I knew that if I was going to do aliens, I mean, we've done. I love, and for the record, I love, Star Trek. I'm a huge Star Trek nerd, so I have no issue with all the humanoid aliens on Star Trek. I get the realities of TV budgets, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that if I was going to do aliens, I wanted to do like really weird aliens. Like these are not in any way human, nor are they even recognizably human-like in their sort of attitudes or behaviors. Or so I have a few different ones. One's really like a sentient colony of worms, and one is kind of three individual entities that have sort of fused together through weird evolutionary processes into a single being. And then
I imagine him as like leggy garlic.
That pulls down with the membranes in the middle. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And so I knew that if I was going to do that, I wanted to go really strange with the aliens, and I love the idea of Belle really identifying with the aliens more than with the humans, because she is extremely misanthropic. She is not a fan of human beings in general, and so she would much rather spend her time with aliens, whether or not she considers them hot.
I love it. She wants to meet new and experience interesting things, even though she doesn't want to work at it.
No. But it's fun because that scene where she meets them is like the only time in the whole book where she's sort of almost like childlike in her enthusiasm. And the rest of the book, she's very jaded about everything. She's one of the reviews I read that I really liked. It's like the Belle's so totally over it, just describing everything basically. She's just so over it, and I was like, that's a perfect description. But like that one scene, I wanted to make her almost giddy, like school child, excitement over meeting these aliens, and I feel like that really invites if it's a fairly early in the book scene, I feel like it invites the reader to form a connection with her in some ways, because like it's not that she truly doesn't care about anything. It's just that you have to work at finding what she's excited about.
For sure. And I want to go ahead and read the Book Life review, just because I want to completely embarrass Greg on screen live. So this is for Murder on the Interstellar Express by Gregory D. Little on Book Life by Publishers Weekly. It is the playful first entry in the Belle Begrudgingly Solves It series, takes readers on a wild ride through murder, the cosmos, and the colony ship Ultima Thule, as Little spins a comic mystery bursting with surprises and snarky humor. Belle Beauregard hated her collectivist home colony, Anarranjando, even before she became a pariah charged with crimes against humanity, which is why that starts at the end of the mutagen deception that Greg was just talking about. Belle Beauregard hated her collectivist. Oh, I said that, sorry. Her dream of getting out of its orbit becomes a reality when she is sentenced to indentured servitude on the Ultima Thule, as a crew of 1,000 set out to help establish a colony on a new planet. Belle is awakened from cryosleep. Is there anything on this scow that won't taste like garbage, she asks? To help maintain a hastily built ship with an unreliable brain. Just one of many odd, amusing characters. For sure. We love Loopy. We have to talk about Loopy. But when the brain announces a murder, our annoyed, proudly foul-mouthed hero is quickly assumed to be the prime suspect. Clearing her name is the mission. But Belle, who quickly develops a reputation for laziness, would rather put moves on her sultry-voiced crewmate, Tass, who is having none of it. Little has crafted a brisk, pleasurable caper in the vein of Martha Wells' Murderbot series, but less militaristic and more juvenile. And here it says, insertion, Belle snickers, after an announcement uses that term. That's what we love about it. I love this. Dialogue is fast and funny, but moments of tension have power. As the murders pile up and Belle's situation grows more perilous, Little's sharp characterization, brisk prose, and skill with a joke will have fans of genre-crossing science fiction larks laughing out loud. A bit involving an anagram clue is inspired. It is,
that's the dumbest joke. I'm so happy someone singled it out.
But it so works. And turning the pages, eager to solve a puzzle whose pieces have integrity, but for all Little's skill with the mystery, the novel is powered by its gently jaded comic vibe. Its lived-in universe made convincing and inviting by Belle's being so deeply over it. SF and sleuth enthusiast who will appreciate the fun author and protagonist poke at tropes from both genres. It's clever and a funny spin on the murder mystery in space. So I love it. I love that this reviewer understands the like gooey part of Belle hidden behind all the juvenile humor on top.
Yep.
Yes.
So, and you have often said, Greg, that Belle like talks to you. Like it's the voice. Like I asked you to write a letter for the reviewers we were sending it to. I was like, can you do it in Belle's voice? You're like, I'm sure I probably can. And you're like 10 minutes later, I'm exaggerating, but it was pretty quick. You're like, oh, here it is. For some reason, she just speaks to me. I'm wondering, does she ever speak to you inconveniently, like, at a meeting or something?
This meeting.
There's definitely an aspect of Belle that is just me when I'm annoyed enough to not care about what anyone thinks about me. So I've definitely feel like I've channeled Belle like in an airport, which is famously a place where I get very annoyed very easily. So that aspect of her personality is probably just me with all the social niceties removed.
I love it.
It's just Gregory D. Little unleashed.
That's right.
Well, it's funny. I've been rereading. I have the Calvin and Hobbes special edition, complete collection, and there's a big intro where Bill Watterson, one of my artistic heroes, describes the creation of the characters, and he basically talks about how Calvin is essentially his id, and Hobbes is like his superego, and and I feel a little bit of Belle when she's being especially annoyed with everything around her. It definitely feels like me when I'm just over it. I guess to borrow the review quote.
I mean, obviously she's the super ego. I mean, hello.
Well, she would think so, yes.
Exactly.
She is super ego.
I love it. The Florida Kevin wants to know, was there any impulse to include this sort of humor in the mutagen books that you had to force yourself to wait for Belle to release?
So funnily enough, not before I wrote this book, but after I'd written the draft, I had to be careful not to let the tone start slipping into the mutagen books. So I've written, I think, really 2 mutagen books, even though the third book came out prior to this one. I actually wrote the third one after writing this book. And then the fourth one, which is in draft form. Both of those I had to kind of smooth out some areas where it was starting to get a little too snarky for the tone of those books, because it was a little too easy to fall into Belle's voice if I wasn't careful, especially when certain characters I think are a little bit Belle-like in that series in terms of their worldview, and so I had to be careful not to make them sound like her, because she is a character that dominates everything. When she's it's funnily enough, originally my view of her was as a secondary character in a different story, and then I quickly realized that she could not be a secondary character. She was too big.
No, because personality wise she plays as a second character, but like you said, she dominates, so it would never work.
Right.
Yeah I love it. And so Sarah, I'm wondering, because you put a whole bunch in the chat, all of the different curse words and the way that she says them. But you yourself, I don't know if I've ever heard you curse. So I'm wondering,
I have cursed on this show.
Have you? Oh.
Yeah, I got, you said, I don't know if we should say curse words because we're on Facebook, and the next thing out of my mouth was a curse word. I don't do it often. I definitely don't do it as often as Belle does.
I don't think anyone does it as often as Belle does.
No, she's pretty foul-mouthed. And basically, anytime it occurs to me that she might say a swear word, I write it down, and I rely on you two to tell me if it's too much.
I don't know if we've ever said that, so I think you're fine.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not so far, anyway.
It's not too much cursing, but there are too many U's.
Too many U's, yeah.
Cursing's fine.
I think the only thing on my style sheet that is more bloated than the curse word section is the abbreviation section.
Oh, yes.
That
joke.
document has a part where I have to write down every time there is an acronym, an abbreviation, any sort of those things, and then give the definition for it. And so that became very interesting, as one of the running jokes in the book has a lot to do with abbreviations and acronyms.
Well, the funny thing is we talk a lot about Belle because she's the star, but she's not the only thing that is amusing about this book. There's a lot of funny things. Like they talked a little bit about the brain Loopy in this.
Yes.
So Loopy is the brain, as the reviewer said, of the ship.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Loopy and why you decided he would be like the perfect. He's funny, but he's almost like Belle's straight man at the beginning, at least.
Yeah, he was fun to write. I decided originally he was an AI, and then I decided that actually didn't fit with the way that the Anna run hot and do things. They mess with your brain, so he's an actual grown brain that is in charge of the ship, an organic brain, human brain, which allows him room to be a little bit more quirky, I guess, as humans.
More human, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the idea is he's in some ways the straight man, but also he will just rattle off. They almost serve as each other's alternating straight man, because sometimes she's the one calling him out on being weird, and sometimes he's the one calling her out on, and he'll just rattle off I really like something that's very funny to me is always like, I don't even know how to term it, but when you're just sort of cheerfully, not malevolent, but like he talks about in one scene how there's all these pre-recorded messages, and one of them is like impact detected on the passenger section or the crew section, prepare for jettisoning of the crew, and he's all very cheerful as he's reciting these things that would lead to the horrible deaths of the crew.
You're all gonna die and have a good day.
and just and like he's always sort of cheerful, but then occasionally he's not. When if I need to be a little bit menacing, he can be. But he's a lot of fun. Yeah, cheerful. I don't know. Cheerful. I guess you can't call him a robot. He's cheerful ship brain.
He's cheerful in the same way that the lady at the self-checkout machine is. Please remove unexpected item from the bagging area.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that energy.
Unexpected item.
There's
from
definitely
the
some
area.
passive aggressiveness to Loopy, and you quickly find out that you can sound cheery but not actually mean anything cheerily, depending on what you're saying.
I mean, he's a brain in a jar. I think he has the right to be a little cranky.
Yeah, but he's another.
But he chooses cheer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Jen says Loopy is the worst advice giver, and yeah, sure. But Loopy is in charge, or instigates one of the running jokes of the book, which is on the Ultima Thule. Part of the crew that Belle is a member of when they wake her up is the Conscious Crew Complement. So we have Triple C, CCC, and they are awake and unhappy about it. I want to share this awesome patch that we had made. So this is based on Greg's amazing words and Sarah's amazing art. So she put this together. And yes, if you're sensing any kind of innuendo with the spaceship, that's on purpose. Again, this is, a Belle book.
I recommended we do that. So.
So this is a patch. This will be awesome. We will have these at booths when we have the book, and we will have it with Greg. Greg, I'm going to send you some extra so that when you give away the 2 free copies, that you can send patches with that too.
Sounds good.
But these patches are cool because they also have a little sticker on it. So if you don't want to sew them on, if you just want them to be stickers, they're sticker backed. So you can actually just stick them wherever you would like them to. And don't let Belle answer where to put them, because she'll have very interesters to that.
Do not ask.
Don't ask, trust me. So one of the things I wonder about is, or I wanted to point out, is that you have these like really interesting aliens we already talked about, but also Belle herself would be very alien to us.
Yes.
So tell us a little about how she is actually made up.
So she is a we don't really even have a word for her. I think we call her a cyborg because that's easy, but she is a human, a biological human who has replaced herself entirely, including her brain, with cybernetic components. Replacing.
So she's not an android either because she had a human conscience,
right.
So it's very confusing to try to label her.
In her culture, the colony world of Anaranjado, replacing most of her body with cybernetics would be on the extreme end, but not considered abnormal. Replacing her brain is actually illegal, something she did on the sly. And she has a very specific character reason why she did this to herself that I cannot tell you because that would be spoiling.
Spoilers!
But yes, so she is unusual in that she is and her brain, because it was replaced in piecemeal, because you wouldn't necessarily, as I was thinking about it, you wouldn't necessarily just want to wholesale swap your brain out.
Like when they fix your eyes, they do one at a time. You know what I mean?
Just exactly, things like that. Yeah. She has all these modules in her head that serve various functions. So she has her like math module. This is the part of her brain that does math for her. And I'm trying to think of her threat assessment module, that analyzes the situation and tells her if she's in danger. And these almost serve like separate personalities. They don't talk in words, but they give her vibes, and they frequently annoy her because Belle being annoyed is funny, so she gets annoyed a lot.
It is funny.
And so she kind of torments them back. So she hates doing math, so she makes it a point to deprive her math module of numbers, because that makes it unhappy, and something that likes math being unhappy makes her happy.
She torments her own brain on purpose.
Yes, which is probably not a metaphor, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, all the things that we would call Belle, I would not call her healthy.
Correct. Yeah.
And again, we find out a bit why at the end of this book.
Yes. No, she's not a mentally healthy person for sure.
No.
The Pine Lord says, "I'm okay classifying her fully as a robot," and that's part of the fun is hearing different people read the book and hearing them describe her, because you get all kinds of different descriptors of how, and that's part of why I wrote her that way, is because I wanted to generate that kind of discussion of like, what is she? What is it? Is she still human? Is something that is a mechanical copy of a human down to the brain still a human?
Yeah.
Where does that line get drawn? These are all things that interest me as a writer, so I get to play around some with that in her. And she would very much say she's still a human, but a like way better human than any other human. In fact, she's constantly making fun of like meat bag humans, or like
or she's falling in love with them.
Or falling in love with them. Yeah, because they're also they're different, so they're intriguing.
No in between.
No in between. That's right.
There's not a lot of subtlety to Belle. She's very
no. That's one thing. Yeah, she's definitely not subtle. That's not one of her skill sets. But I love the fact that she doesn't want to work at all, and now she's forced to solve this murder.
Yes, she hates doing work. She's very lazy, and now because she's forced into this position because obviously her own existence is in danger if she doesn't resolve this scenario. So, and for various reasons, it has to be her.
Yeah, it has to be her. And you'll know why. It's that clever anagram.
Mm-hmm.
The Master Fault. I want to talk a little bit about Master Fault and Barnabas.
Okay.
So these are side characters. They're also part of the CCC crew.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not passengers, right? They are in the crew that has to help clean up. They are aliens, and Master Fault, what he looks like changes in my brain, which it changes in the book. So it's really clever the way that you do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking, because I know he's going to be in book 2, so we're going to get more of him in book 2, right?
Yep. Oh, yes.
And so Kevin's laughing right now. He knows where I'm going. Master Fault was a character you played when we played D&D together with a bunch of other writers.
Yep.
And then you took that name and then you decided to make a character, a very different character, by the way, than the D&D one, and put him in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, is there any connection between the two? Did you just like the name?
There's not a direct connection. They're not meant to be the same entity, but they are. Some of what inspired me to make the D&D character Master Fault inspired me with this character some as well. So they're, and the vibe this character gives off is very much what I wanted to go for in D&D and was very bad at portraying because I'm a writer, not an actor. So if you ever watch those old streams and like, what is he going for? And read this book, that's what I was going for, is what you get with this character.
He's like creepy and wise all at the same time.
Yes, he's creepy and wise, very sort of urbane, but weird at the same time. And then Barnabas was actually my backup character if Master Fault ever died, which was a very real possibility at one point.
Yeah.
So I'd come up with Barnabas as my completely different direction type character, and he's basically a robot priest, and he's an actual robot, not like a former human who's turned themselves robotic. He's a some sort of, Bell speculates, I think he's some sort of loading bot or something that somehow got turned into a priest, and he's a priest that he's a priest of one. He believes in a religion that is his own religion. Nobody else believes in it. And he's extremely devoted, but he's very nice. He's like a very nice zealot, I guess you'd say.
He's very polite.
Yeah.
He's very encouraging right before he says he's going to murder you.
Yes. Yeah. So he's a little bit of a different take on the Loopy question, like whereas Loopy's a little bit more menacing and menacing seeming, and Barnabas is a little bit more genuinely cheerful seeming.
Well, Barnabas actually believes what he says. Loopy.
You don't know what Loopy's deal is.
Yeah.
Loopy doesn't know.
Yeah, Loopy doesn't know what Loopy's deal is. Yeah, Barnabas. No, he's very sincere. Barnabas is fun. Is another character that's fun to write, and he's also, well, we won't get into any spoilers, but he's a lot of fun. I get a kick every time I get to write him, anyway.
He was my favorite.
Yes.
Oh. I was going to ask you which one was your favorite.
Yeah, Barnabas. I really liked him.
He's very likable.
Yeah,
he's a likable guy.
Well, some of the reviews. Sorry, go ahead.
It's definitely not because my D&D character is a dragonborn barbarian fantasy Mormon who spreads the word of fantasy Jesus to orcs and giants.
Yeah, see, that's actually
that's
that's pretty much him.
Yeah,
and,
it's just not Jesus. It's the great. What's the great rope? The
great metal.
The great
That's it,
metal.
right.
I thought what's the dumbest thing a robot could believe in as a god? And I was like, well, they're made of metal, so he believes in the great metal.
It works.
And
Totally
and
works.
The hardest part is actually coming up with metal-related metaphors that sound religious. And I thought it's something that I thought would be easier than it was, and by the end of the book, I'm like, oh man, like I need to come up with something. It's probably what Kevin Petway feels when he has to come up with a new, unique by Oldham's, etc.
Okay, which body part have I not done yet?
Right.
Hold on.
And I'm like, okay, what can I say that sounds metallic that that he can use as a prayer or some sort of religious statement.
Yeah. No, I love it. This book is a triumph, Greg. So I am so proud of you and so proud of what you've done. It's been so much fun to edit this book. Even when it wasn't fun, it was fun. Because you laugh. I have Jessie was on earlier, I think. And so one of our early readers, and she was saying that she was on vacation and she kept quoting the thing out loud to her husband and kid because she just could not stop because it was so funny. And so this is the thing. And just like the other reviewer said, that it's so funny, but the funny really is surface level. And so when you go deep as the story progresses, you get a lot more that's going on with Belle. And
Yep.
so I think when you feel things that deeply, it is like, you know how sometimes they say like the funniest people, a lot of times they're like suffering from depression because they're actually trying to compensate for how they feel inside. So Belle does a lot of that too, except she also always has a sexual innuendo. And I just want to tell you that I am still not satisfied with the answer of her wanting sex all the time, but she's totally mechanical.
They kept that part of her brain. What can I say?
Say one of the modules is the lewd module.
Yeah,
Like
that's not even a module. That's she wouldn't have that. It's just fully integrated. You know.
She's like, no, that's part of
Yeah.
my brain.
Yeah, but we had that discussion, and you know,
Yeah.
I like the contradiction of it because, you know, on the one hand, you might think, oh, if you were totally replacing, you know, your body with mechanical cybernetic components, maybe you wouldn't have any need for that. But on the other hand, she would be like, well, it's fun, so I want to still do it, and I want to still want to do it. So, you know, it's she and the contradiction, I think, is part of what makes her an interesting character, is that she's
Yeah.
both looking to leave portions of her humanity behind, but also can't quite bring herself to fully leave her humanity behind.
Mhm.
Oh.
That's why we often associate this with the Murderbot series, but in Murderbot is asexual, right? Belle is the opposite of that. Whatever the opposite.
Yes. No, she's very much
Asexual.
she never met a dirty joke that she didn't like, and I will admit that when we played back to D&D, when we were doing that campaign, I was one of the ones that was snickering every time anyone said anything that could be construed as potentially an innuendo or a double entendre, along with JD Astra. She was also guilty of that. So I sent her
100%.
the link for the early copy, saying, I think you'll like this. It's like,
Oh yeah, it's right up
I think
her
this
alley.
is up your alley.
I love it. Yep. I feel like there's a joke here, but I can't quite put my finger on it, that she wants sex all the time and you say you're not satisfied. There's probably a joke in there
That's
somewhere.
the thing is I almost have to like not, because sometimes I would get to a scene I'd written or a section I'd written, I'd be like, oh well, there's a dirty joke I missed, like, so I have to at least throw in a little like mental aside that she I think the insertion quote is it's probably one of those where there's a whole chapter, literally a whole chapter, that is nothing but one long sex joke. And I told Kelly, I was like, I don't know if you're going to go for this because I'm not sure it really serves a purpose beyond being funny, but here you go.
Hey, I go for it if it works, man.
Yeah. So
just don't tell Jeremy Brundage about it. I don't need him to.
It's still somehow plot relevant. You're good.
Yeah, I tried
That's
to
right.
I made sure it was plot relevant. She and Master Fault have a plot relevant discussion. And so, but meanwhile, it's just her making a constant long running sex joke, basically. So
I love it. Now, this is a series, so I know you have, like we said earlier, that book 2 is in my inbox,
yes.
Waiting for me to experience it. I will say experience. This is a Belle book. So waiting to experience it. I'm wondering, do we get more of Master Fault and Barnabas in this next book?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
In fact,
that's what most of us want to hear.
In fact, when I got to a Barnabas section, I sent a quote from it to Birdie over Discord, saying and without, I don't think with any context, it was obvious who was talking.
Yeah.
And Birdie's
like, oh, hello, Barnabas, and he was like, yes.
Yeah, he's a character who he doesn't talk for a lot of the book for plot reasons, and honestly, the reason I did that was because I realized early on in the draft that if he could talk all the time and was in a lot of scenes, he was another character who was sort of taking over everything. So I was like, I need him to not be able to talk for a while for reasons, just to not have him, just to establish everybody else. And then so he eventually gets his voice back and is able to talk. But and even in the second book, at least as it's currently drafted, he comes in and out. He's not there all the time because, again, it's like a little Barnabas goes a long way, and if you had him in every scene, it would just become the Barnabas show.
Like if you had tried to do Belle as a side character, it would not have worked.
Yeah, so you just have to, take him in little bits.
Well, I want you to know that's what you call that is brilliant writing. Like you did a great job because I didn't know that's why you did it.
Yeah, that's why.
And it makes total sense. I didn't notice. I was like, yep, this all works. We're good to go. So that's really, really well done. So I'm impressed, Mr. Little.
Thank you.
Good job. Jesse says one is never too old for innuendos. I'm not sure Greg needs that kind of encouragement.
Yeah, well, we're they continue in the next book. That's all I can say. So.
All right, I feel it would be fun through your book to pull out quotes and say who said it. See, I mean that would be a fun game.
Well, and it would be a hallmark, and it is a hallmark of good writing,
Yes.
that each character is so unique that you can pull out the quotes and know who's speaking without the dialogue tags.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So
That's
nicely done.
something
You get
that
claps.
a lot of it's something that we try and teach a lot of writers, not CDS writers, but just writers in general, is how to do that. And sometimes they don't get it.
Right. Sometimes they don't get it and sometimes they do. But also, I mean, you got a full series under your belt, 3 books in another series, right? So this is your 3rd starting series. And I mean, you've really knocked it out of the park, Greg.
Thank
you. I am impressed. And the reviewers back me up. This is not just my biased opinion. So
well,
and Sarah did not call me and complain. So this is an accomplishment.
I don't complain about any of our books. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. You're right. It's always on Discord. We complain back and forth, all right? Everyone complains about their job. Belle would understand this.
Oh, yeah.
I've definitely complained about, like, freelance projects.
Oh, yes. Now, that we complain about a lot more. That is true. Very true. We will keep the names anonymous here. And it does make us great Cursed Dragon Ship writers, just for the... sure. But yeah, so we do have a policy around here at Cursed Dragon Ship that if people like you, they will like what you write. So, Greg, what are you watching right now?
We just finished there's the new Batman animated, it's Batman Caped Crusader, Caped Crusader, can't talk, on Amazon. And I guess it was originally going to be a Max show, but they declined it and then Amazon picked it up. So we watched that. It's 10 episodes, and it's done by the same guy who did the animated series back in the 90s, which we were both big fans of. So we were curious. This is kind of a different take on an animated Batman series, but by the same kind of creative brain behind it. And it's interesting because he goes in a lot of different directions than they did in the original, and this Batman's kind of a dick. It's in an interesting way. Like he
was born wealthy.
He's kind of a jerk. He's
traumatized.
And it's very much it's a much more ensemble show than I remember the original animated series being. Like Batman is sort of first among equals, but he's not the center of the show as much as you might think a show about Batman would be. There's a lot of stuff with some of the detectives, and Barbara Gordon is a defense attorney, and she gets a lot of screen time. So it was interesting. We enjoyed it. Is
it the one where Alan Tudyk is the Joker's voice?
The Joker hasn't shown up yet, so no.
Because there was something he was doing the voice in, and I had no idea what that project was.
The main character arc from a rogues gallery standpoint is a Harvey Dent in season 1.
Oh, okay.
So. Well, yeah, that's what we've been. We haven't really started anything new. We've been kind of been on a TV. We haven't watched a lot of TV lately. There just hasn't been a lot of stuff that's grabbed us, honestly.
Same. That's why I've been reading more.
Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. And was the second question, what have you been reading?
What have I been reading? I'm a big Wheel of Time fan, and they've been re-releasing. I do a lot of audiobooks. It's my main reading vector these days, just because of how my schedule lines up. And they've been re-releasing the audiobook series with Rosamund Pike, who's the star on the show, doing the narration. And she's done audiobooks before. She's not a novice audiobook narrator. She's very good. And it's been interesting hearing her sort of, because I've listened to the audiobooks of the old original. That is one of my favorite series. Sort of read it in my formative years. Fairly influential to how I approach certainly fantasy, at least. And so it's interesting hearing a different performer's take on the same material, and it's also fun because she's a fairly good mimic, and she will, when she comes to a character that is in the show and has been cast and in the show, she'll usually do an impression of the actor who plays the character in the show, and then their impressions are pretty solid. So
Cool.
it's kind of fun from that stuff, because I first noticed it and I'm like, oh, she's doing so and so who plays this character. So
that's a good narrator.
Yeah, she's very good, and I was excited because they announced that she's done the first 3 and they're releasing the 4th one in a month or so, I think. So I'll definitely pick that up.
Very cool. And lastly,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
Mm-mm.
The last thing is that I know that you love your video games.
Yeah.
So what game are you currently playing?
I have I'm finally playing Alan Wake 2, which has been sitting on my hard drive for almost a year now because it came out last fall. I was a big fan of the first one, and I just didn't have time to get to this one, but I'm finally getting to it. And I'm really enjoying it so far. It's interesting. It's definitely an Alan Wake game, but it's also very much its own thing, and kind of a different take structurally on that survival horror approach. And then otherwise, I'm still playing a lot of Helldivers 2 with my some of my family. We get on and we play, and that's always a good time if you just want to accidentally blow each other up, or accidentally, in my brother's case, he likes to. He'll announce that he's called in a cluster bomb strike about a half a second before it hits you.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah. Or he'll just say, my favorite is he'll just say, "Watch out," with no context or other information.
You have just enough time to curse him out. That's it.
Yeah. And then you just hear him laughing so hard he's wheezing on the. But that's
you are a writer. You can name a character after.
But that's the fun. That's the fun of the game, honestly, is that sort of stuff. So is because...
Don't encourage him. I love it. Helldive. I hear a lot of good stuff about it, as in people love it, but it does not sound like it's up my alley.
No, it's you have to be into a certain level of frantic chaos to get into it, and it really is like the chaos part of it is the fun part if you're not down for constantly being on the brink of or actively dying. But it's a clever game because it's got a lot of Starship Troopers vibes under the hood. You're very much part of this super Earth one world government that is very clearly fascist and the bad guy, and you are clearly the instrument of the bad guy spreading, pain and misery and everything. But and the game is sort of constantly hinting at this fact. There's all these funny messages that are saying very ominous things, kind of like stuff in this book, honestly. It sounds cheerful until you actually think about what they're saying, and you're like, oh wait, that's
what the words actually are.
Fairly ominous.
Wait, what are we chanting?
And then when your character dies, you
for managed democracy.
Yeah,
I was like, there was something we always say. That's it, for managed democracy.
Yeah. And when your character dies, one of the little details I love, you respawn. It's not the same character. Like, that person is dead, and the person they're launching down is a new. So it's just the gag is they're just feeding people through this meat grinder of an endless war.
Sounds like managed democracy to me.
A different voice, like it's.
Yeah, that would totally throw me off.
Yeah, so
it'd be really fun to watch, though.
Oh yeah, it's a blast to watch.
Yeah.
There's lots of people who stream it.
Yeah, that one sounds fun. Yeah, Jim Butcher loves that game. He plays it constantly.
Yeah, it's a good time. Not a lot of people get really wrapped around the axle about exactly how the company manages everything. It's like, I'm just having fun. As long as I'm having fun, they can kind of tweak it how they want. So.
Yeah, you're like, I just want my brother to blow me up. It's fine.
That's right.
I love it. Zepho wants to know, in honor of DragonCon coming up, if cost, skills, etc. were no impediment, what would you cosplay as?
I haven't thought about that. I mean, I've always wanted to do. This is kind of a boring answer, but it's a really, really like movie accurate, like Darth Vader would be a lot of fun. But
I mean, you're tall enough; you could pull it off.
Yeah.
That would be fun. That'd probably be my go-to if money were no object, and I could tolerate being that sweaty, I guess.
I say, yeah, no. If money's
Atlanta,
no
yeah.
object, you build AC unit into the box on his chest
exactly.
that has fans that come up into the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It might be a little loud, but you just turn it off.
Yeah, you're right.
And
what about you, Sarah? What would you cosplay?
So I have done large cosplays when money and skill were limitations. If money and skill were no limitation, I would want to do James from Pokemon. He's one of the two parts of Team Rocket, and his partner Pokemon, which is Carnivine. And Carnivine is this giant Venus flytrap monster. And I have like this vision where like you can, as part of the anime, James is often has his partner Pokemon chew on his head. And so like I have been for years trying to figure out how to make a giant Carnivine hat so that I can wear it around a convention hall and then have like the limbs flying off.
You just need to find someone who has just recently done Little Shop of Horrors and buy their costume.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. I love it. So congratulations, Greg, and nice job cleaning this up and making it presentable, Sarah. We appreciate it. No one might know to use, but you know what? They won't get stuck on them. So you did a good job.
They won't get stuck on. I know. Mm-hmm. I made it work.
That's right. Well, so if someone is looking for a detail-oriented editor, where can they find you?
ladybirdediting.com, or you could reach out directly, ladybirdediting@gmail.com, or Tuesdays at 8:30 standard. You can go to my channel, Birdie25, here on Twitch, where I do a live editing show looking at viewer-submitted stories and editing them live.
I love it. And Greg, now that everyone must have this book, and Zepho just put the link up again. If you're listening to this later, you can go to curseddragonship.com/MOTIE. Murder on the Internet, or Interstellar Express.
Murder on the Internet Express is a very different book.
It's a totally different book. That's right. That one is crime fiction. Greg, where can people find you and your work?
My website's gregorydlittle.com. It is partially revamped. The front page looks great. The rest of it, I'm working on it. You can find that has all three of my series sort of front and center, so you can pick and choose. In fact, I even call it pick your poison as far as the covers. But and I'm on Twitter at LitGreg, although I'm not there so much these days. I think I'm Instagram and Facebook as well. I have author pages there. And yeah, if you like, as Kelly was saying earlier, if you like Murderbot, if you like Gideon the Ninth, if you like Deadpool, this is a good book to check out. I think you'll have a good time.
Yeah, I know Deadpool and Wolverine have been fun, but Deadpool and Belle would be awesome.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know.
They would fight for center stage.
Man. Yeah. Yeah. Belle's not as violent as Deadpool, I will say that. That's
it. I'm sending one of these to Ryan Reynolds. Hold on.
If we can get Ryan Reynolds to read and tweet about this, then we're set at that point.
Right.
So we do the movie adaptation, right? But Belle is just Ryan Reynolds in a wig.
Hey, you know what? Well, I'll take it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming along. On Thursday, we're going to be doing some writing sprints. So anyone out there trying to get some writing done, we're going to do writing sprints on Thursday. And then we will see you Sunday for a cover reveal of Jessie Sprague's book, Porcelain. So we will be here Sunday for that. So we'll see you the rest of this week. Congratulations, Greg. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Sarah. And we'll see y'all soon.